The glory of Jehovah filled the tabernacle. You've heard of the glory cloud? God comes in clouds. God has always come in clouds. Jesus, the whole prophecy of Jesus' return is, behold, he comes with the clouds. So that's what's happening here as well. God has come in a cloud to fill a dwelling. Hi friends, welcome back to Embrace the Question. I am glad to be with you. You may be expecting the next installment in our Bible study with me exploration of Exodus, which would normally be, I think, chapter 38. However, after releasing last week's video of chapter 37, I realized that we completely skipped chapter 36. So what I've done here is I'm planning to explore 36, 38, 39, and 40 today with this video. And in order to do that, I am not going to do a complete verse by verse on all of this, mostly because it would beat us to death. If you're not completely into the numerics of the design, the actual dimensions of every little thing, then this gets really tedious. And I don't want it to. I want us to see the big picture here. And I can do that by finishing up the entire chapter tonight. So let's do that. And in doing so, we're going to cover, I think, some of the most profound material that we have encountered to date in Exodus. And let me just start by saying Exodus has 40 chapters. Interesting, isn't it? Because 40 is our number for a biblical generation. You think 40 years. How long did they stay in the wilderness during the Exodus? 40 years. How long was Jesus in the wilderness when he was fasting after his baptism? 40 days. So 40, very significant. I still am amazed by the numerical aspect of all of this. So we'll cover a little bit of it, but that's not our focus. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. If you want to see more like it, then subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you just enjoy and can glean some new nuggets for your own biblical exploration. Let's get started. All right, so like I said, I skipped chapter 36, and it wasn't intentional, I promise you. I somehow just missed it. And 37 was really powerful for me, so it was interesting to skip back a chapter and look at a little bit of the context of that. But what I've done here is I have highlighted some of the points that I definitely want to hit. So let's start with verse 1, my first highlight. Bezalel, or Bazalel is how I typically pronounce his name, and Aholiab shall work with everyone wise of heart. So this whole thing, what's going on? We know that Moses has come down from Mount Sinai the second time, carrying the stone tablets that he himself wrote. You know, when you've taken a number of days to chisel out all these rules yourself, you're not going to be quite so prone to throwing them down, even if you're angry. So God has made him pen them the second time. He's brought them down, and now we're restarting this entire building process for the tabernacle. And God has empowered these guys. We've spoken about this, Bezalel and Aholiab, and he's given them special Holy Spirit-inspired wisdom for building, which to me is amazing because Holy Spirit knows how to build anything and everything. Here it says they are working with everyone wise of heart, to whom Jehovah has given wisdom and intelligence to know how to do every work of the service of the sanctuary, which they've been commanded. I highlighted it because of the community aspect of this. God is paying particular attention to community here. He doesn't want one person doing it. He wants the community to do it. And we're going to see that amplified as we even go below. You'll notice that my second highlight here in verse 5, they're asking for people to bring the materials. Where did they get the materials in the first place? Well, this is what they were given by the Egyptians: gold, silver, bronze, anything of value. On their way out of Egypt, the Egyptians were just blessing them with these items, with jewelry, with just riches of all sorts. This is what the people are bringing. And it says here in verse 5, the people are bringing more than enough. They're bringing more than enough. We scroll down, it says here, let neither man nor woman make any more offering for the sanctuary, for the people, and the people are held back from bringing. Stop bringing stuff. This is one, a community effort. It's voluntary. If you didn't want to give up your gold bracelet in order to see this actually come through, then you didn't have to give it. Completely voluntary. And this is a picture of what? This is a picture of our own salvation being worked. God doesn't force anything on anyone. He just wants you to volunteer to be a part of the community and be a part of what he is doing. That's the invitation always. So in this case, it's more than enough. In verse 7, their property was sufficient for all the work to do it, and it was too much. Now I'm going to ask you this question. When was the last time your church told you to stop giving? I'm a pastor. I have never had to tell my congregation to stop giving. There's been a few times when I've needed to ask them to give because they just do it, but I've never had to tell them to stop giving. They've never just brought too much. And I find that amazing, right? Because the people, not only their property was sufficient for all the work that was to be done, but it was too much. And I've never seen the like of that. I've never seen that. I've never even seen a comparable instance of that in modern day experience. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure this out. But such was the community, such was their involvement, that God said, that's enough. Don't need any more. Hold on to your riches. Hold on to what's left. You keep it. We have plenty. All right. And then they're going to start making all this stuff. And here we have all of the numerology starting to kick in. And you're going to see lots and lots of fives. There's one curtain was 28 by the cubit. The length was 28 as far as cubits go. 4, you'll see 4s, but lots of 5s and lots of 50s. What's 5? You think probably grace? I do. Fivefold ministry, grace. 50, what's 50? Jubilee. You've got 7 sevens and then plus 1. That's the Jubilee year. That always represents freedom. So God is incorporating these very strong messages into the building of his structure. 50s, 5s, there's a 30. Interesting, that one. We see 30s in other places in the scripture. There's a 10 cubit, but it's talking about how many hooks, how many sockets, how many boards, how long were the boards, what color were the boards, and then you have all the different colors of the linens that are draped over the boards, all the hooks, all that neat stuff. That comprises the rest of 36, okay? We've done 37 last week, and I'm not going to review it, but let's take a look at 38 because that's just a continuation. We're still building here. We're talking about the acacia wood. We're talking about the horns and the vessels and the bronze grating of the altar right here. Bronze grating of the altar. Here's one that's really interesting. You may remember, I'll put up a picture again of a modern day painting of what this might have looked like. And you'll see in front of the door, you're going to see a bronze laver. And this is where the priests would wash. And it says it was created from the mirrors of the serving women. Now I want you to envision this. This is not a small thing. This is a huge basin that's going to be filled full of water, and it's going to be made with the mirrors of the serving women. Okay, who are the serving women? Well, it says those assembling who served at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Okay, if we select that and we go over here to we go over here to the pulpit commentary, it talks about of the looking glasses of the women which assembled. Interesting. Literally, those who, I don't know if you can see this, but you probably can a little bit. Literally, who came by troops, women assembled themselves by troops at the entrance of the tent of meeting set up by Moses. Okay, if you'll remember the story of Eli, the priest that was in charge, the high priest in charge of all of this, when Samuel was brought to live with him by his mother, Hannah. Samuel's a little boy. Samuel hears the voice of God. Eli is old enough and wise enough to know, hey, Samuel is hearing God's voice. He thinks it's me calling him, but it's really God. So Samuel, here's how you respond. He was at least that wise, but what we find out is that Eli was not a good dad. He did not bring up his sons with any discipline at all. So his sons did what they wanted. And 1 Samuel 2:22, it says, and Eli was very old and had heard all that his sons did to Israel and how they lay with the women who served at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So again, we know that women served at the door of the tabernacle. This is hundreds of years later, maybe 100 years later at least. But this is just what happened. It says in another reference that women just kept watch at the door. Not sure what they watched for, if they were just like a neighborhood watch at night to make sure there was no mischief occurring at the door of the tabernacle. But this is what they did. We're going to see lots of 50s, and we're still just talking about dimensions and numbers of hooks, of sockets, that type of things, different lengths of things that were around this part of the tabernacle. Okay, and it also goes into this. You might find this interesting. There is a measurement given of how much all of this weighed. The gold used was for the work. Okay, where does it say? How much gold? 29 talents at 730 29 talents and 730 shekels by the shekel of the sanctuary. 29 talents. A little bit of exploration for the Greek mind, which I'm trying to resist, is how much did that weigh? How much gold was it? The truth is, it doesn't really matter. It was a lot of gold, 29 talents. And you can look up how much they think a talent weighed and figure out how many hundreds of pounds of gold. But if we scroll down, and the silver of the numbered ones of the assembly was 100 talents. So we have 29 talents of gold. We have 100 talents of silver. And if we scroll on down, we have, let's see, bronze. 70 talents of bronze. So 29 gold, 100 silver, 70 talents of bronze. Those are the three primary metals used in the structure of the tabernacle. What do they represent? We know that gold represents the purity of God, what it has been redeemed. It's pure. It's pure gold. It's holy. It's the perfection of God. Silver very much is that which is redeemed. You get a lot of that imagery later with the prophets, but they talk about how silver has dross on it. So when you put it under a high heat, you're going to skim off the dross, the trash that comes off the top of the silver. So it's a redemption metal. And then you've got bronze, which is a judgment metal. So you've got Jesus with his feet as burnished bronze. Interesting that these are the three main metals made in the congregation. Okay, we're not quite to the part that I considered so profound just yet. Chapter 39 has to do with the clothing of the priests. So we have all of this detail about how to make the ephod, how to set the stones, how to create the breast pocket. There's rings on there where you're going to hook the breastplate. All of this stuff where we're going to put the Urim and the Thummim on there, where they're going to kind of hide their little dice type objects for making decisions. Okay, how the mitre looks, all of this stuff. And then chapter 39 ends with this, and Moses saw all the work. And behold, they had done it. As Jehovah commanded Moses, so they had done, and Moses blessed them. And that looks to me a whole lot like the very end of Genesis chapter 1. We can scroll down and it says, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. There is a recreation of the garden going on. We've talked about the parallels between this tabernacle and the actual garden. That's just, we're recreating the garden of sorts, because this is where God is going to meet with man. That's their idea of the garden. Scoot on back here to Exodus 39, and we see Moses kind of ends it in the same way. He sees the work, and behold, they'd done it. And I'm sitting there looking at it and thinking, well, he's just going to say, and it was good. But he never does quite come out and say, and it was good. He says, they've done it, and Moses blessed them. And I believe it's in the next chapter that we're going to see something a little bit more provoking than this. So let's go over here to chapter 40. And on chapter 40, you're going to scroll down, and it's talking about setting all of this up. You've got it all built. Now we're going to set it up. We're going to place the tent, the actual tabernacle. Then we're going to put the tent over it. Then we're going to start setting the holy items inside of it. Okay? That's what most all of this is about. And then it says, verse 33, here's what really got my attention. And Moses finished the work. And Moses finished the work. I don't know if Moses literally was the one who put the finishing touches on it, so to speak, or if they are generalizing all of this going on as Moses. Moses is doing it. I don't know which it is, but it says, and Moses finished the work. Why is that significant? Because this is the primary covenant for Israel as a group of people. This is the primary covenant, and it involves a finished work. What was the finished work? It was the finishing and setting up of the temple. That's important because Jesus, as the institutor, the author of this new covenant, his finished work is the most important thing that has ever happened in the history of histories. He finished the work on the cross. What did that do? That allowed for an exodus into this new covenant. What's the basis of this new covenant? Well, it's Christ in you, the hope of glory. That's the whole basis of this new covenant that we have, is that he is God coming to tabernacle inside of us. And it's all due to the finished work of Christ. So we have a mini picture here. Moses finishing the work. Then what happens? Verse 34. And the cloud covered the tabernacle of the congregation, and the glory of Jehovah filled the tabernacle. Okay, go with me here, because this gets a little bit abstract, but I think you'll see it. God creates Adam and Eve in this perfect garden, and he instructs them to fill the garden and to expand the garden, and yes, to fill the earth, fill their creation. Adam and Eve was a pure representation of himself. They represented his glory at the beginning. He was fully in them. He was fully around them. He fully loved them. They had full trust in him. They were his image. They were his representation on this physical globe we call the earth. And they had every blessing available to them. They were representatives of his being, his glory. And they were to fill the earth. Okay? They sinned, and a veil was placed over all of that glory. They lost their ability to see the glory, his glory in them, all of this. So all of this was put on hold, and God went to kind of a micro level. He said, okay, we're going to recreate this at a small place in this small people called Israel, and we're going to create this miniature of the garden, and I'm going to have them build it, and I am going to fill it. So this time, I'm not going to build it. You're going to build it, and I'm going to fill it, as opposed to I'm going to build it, and you're going to fill it. You see, we've swapped here. So what happens? Moses finishes the work. In Genesis, God does it. And now it says, and Jehovah moves in, the glory fills the tabernacle. And what happens? Verse 35, Moses was not able to come into the tabernacle because there's this cloud dwelling on it and in it. The glory of Jehovah filled the tabernacle. You've heard of the glory cloud? God comes in clouds. God has always come in clouds. Jesus, the whole prophecy of Jesus' return is, behold, he comes with the clouds. So that's what's happening here as well. God has come in a cloud to fill a dwelling. All right. So you're seeing that picture. Here's another part. If the cloud did not go up, then they didn't pull up the stakes. Here's one I missed. If the cloud went up from the tabernacle, the sons of Israel pulled up the stakes and they left. So if the cloud left, they left. And if the cloud did not go, then they didn't go. Everything being dictated by the cloud. The new covenant, again, with the mystery of Christ in you, the hope of glory, where you go, the cloud goes. Where you go is where he goes. And you can choose to go anywhere, my friends. You can go into the very depths of hell itself, and he'll go with you. That's the truth. What did David write? He said, though I make my bed in hell, thou art with me. Because David had a revelation of this. I will never leave you or forsake you. I cannot be separated from you from this point on, because you are my final temple, tabernacle, and the glory of the latter house far surpasses the glory of the former house. that's the amazing thing here is we're getting a view into God's ultimate plan. It's just flopped a little bit. And God doesn't like this one nearly so much as he likes the current one, the new covenant. So we don't get to see any of this. We don't really get to see it until we get all the way through Exodus 40. All right, guys, it's really my prayer that that made you think, that might have even created some questions that you need to ask. And I would be glad for you to ask those questions. On the blog, I have a place for you to respond to blog posts. Please visit the blog. But also feel free to put a question down in the comments below. I'll try to remember to keep up with those because they get to be a lot for me to keep up with. But if I see it, I will absolutely answer it because I really love the questions. They help me to grow in all of this knowledge as well. But that is going to do it for our study through Exodus. I think it caps it off very well. And maybe you can now see also the importance of knowing the entire picture of Exodus. Because Exodus, if you don't know Exodus, then you don't understand Moses. I hinted at it during this talk, but the whole idea is that we all go through an Exodus from slavery into freedom. That is a central premise in the New Testament, where they are going through an Exodus from the old to the new. In fact, when Jesus is standing on the Mount of Transfiguration, it says he's talking with Moses and he's talking with Elijah. And Peter and James and John are watching. And it says that they are discussing his departure. The Greek for departure is Exodus. So it says they are discussing his Exodus, Jesus's Exodus, from out from under the old into this new covenant. This is everything. And we get to go with him. So I hope this blesses you. Hope this provokes you, makes you want to know more. That's the whole purpose of all of this anyway. Hope you guys have a great week. Hope to see your comments or your questions in the comments. Absolutely. And until next time, you guys be blessed, be a blessing.